Meg 2,
Mm-hmm.
The Trench. So Jason Statham fighting a giant shark, a giant prehistoric shark. The trailer has what I think is a great image of the Meg eating a Tyrannosaurus Rex. I love that. I feel worried though that in this movie that could be a scene that is like a dream sequence or something. I don't know. Like this movie's
Mm-hmm.
not going to be about the Meg in prehistoric times fighting dinosaurs.
Yeah.
Um, but it is a great image in the trailer. They play the song Barracuda in the trailer. I mean that if you were making enough Meg movies, at some point Barracuda had to be in the trailer. So the thing is, this one really feels like it was a movie that people were high on at the beginning of the summer that now is going to get eaten alive by Barbenheimer.
Yeah,
The
and
Meg feels like the T-Rex and Barbenheimer feels like the Meg in that trailer.
I feel like maybe I don't think everybody was high on this. I do think that there were people who thought it could be a sleeper. I think this is definitely big international, worldwide play. It's not a domestic play at this point. It
Mhm.
definitely is going to do really well overseas, and I think it's gonna do very poorly here because it's the epitome of what people have rejected this year,
Okay.
which is another round of a action movie that we've kind of seen all the moves of, right? And I think like you know, when you look at Dial of Destiny, you look at MI7, when you look at those sort of movies, when you look at Fast X, the Meg has one move and it's shark. And then this one is bigger shark. And Statham is a guy, but his hits are modest hits. And so this thing really looks stale to me. When you put it up against Barbie and Oppenheimer, it just looks stale.
Okay.
And there's nothing in these trailers that excites me. I mean, the first one did really well. The first one
Did
ended up
145 domestic
yeah,
after opening at 45. So the first one was an all-out hit on both domestically and internationally. It ended up 527 worldwide.
and it was like a surprise sort of
Yes.
that it did at that well. I think all the surprise here is gone. I think this looks stale as hell, and I do think that it's gonna tank here. I'm not saying it's gonna, open in the teens, but I don't think it's gonna do well, domestically compared to the first one. There's no way it reaches 144 here, but
Yeah.
I think it does buff a Bobo overseas. That's what
Yeah.
this movie is. It's not for
Well,
domestic, consumption.
I disagree a little bit with this movie being the epitome of what's going wrong this summer, because what's going wrong this summer are A, superhero movies, but B, late entries in long running franchises. When you say indie, that's the fifth one. In Mission Impossible is the seventh one. Transformers is like the seventh or eighth one. So I think Fast X is the X one. So I don't think the Meg 2 is necessarily a problem because it's a sequel. I think the bigger problem is and this is the great Scott Mendelssohn's one of his great box office inventions. This is the Tomb Raider trap, or not even
Mhm.
necessarily the Tomb Raider trap, because the Tomb Raider trap is first movie is a big hit but is bad. Second movie is actually a good movie but bombs because of the first movie.
This
So
doesn't
we
look
don't
like a
know.
good movie.
This doesn't look like a good movie, so it's probably not Tomb Raider trap. So forgive me, Scott Mendelsohn, for even invoking that. But I think it's a problem in that the first movie was not good and not liked and didn't give people exactly what they hoped for, which was, I think, a more gonzo movie. The
Mhm.
Meg original movie was not as gonzo as the premise and the sort of trailer would have led you to believe. And I think, to me, that's a bigger problem. If the Meg was a surprisingly great movie that was beloved in retrospect, I don't think there's any problem with there being a sequel. Because, I mean, look at John Wick 4. That still had all the steam. You could do sequels. Spidey Cartoon 2 was a big hit. Guardians of the Galaxy 3 was a big hit. But the problem is the first one isn't some beloved great movie, and now it's a sequel. So
It
yeah,
does
it's
play
going to
on
perform
cable a
less.
lot, though. It does play on cable a lot, I've heard
Yes.
that it's
Yeah.
there. But here's my thing why I think it is
It's a
equivalent.
rewatchable.
I do think it's equivalent to those other franchises because sometimes franchises wear out their welcome in a shorter
Yeah.
span of time. Meg 2 is Fast X because you don't need more than one Meg movie,
Right.
right? That's my thing is that nobody is saying, I really need to see more of this, especially this summer, which, I mean, July, second biggest July ever,
Yeah.
1.37 billion. And that is thanks to, a lot of things, but
Yeah.
mostly Barbenheimer.
Yep.
But this to me feels like the kind of stuff that is, old and tired, and it's gonna get rejected.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I mean, when you look at that first one opening at 45 million domestic, back in August of 2018, and now as we sit right now, it feels like the Meg 2 is going to open to about half of that.
20
So then,
something.
then that sort of leads you to do the math and make it feel like this is a movie that domestically is going to top out in the 60s or 70s. But you know what? Like you said, it's an international play, and you got to make a sequel to that first Meg movie, after that performance. You don't have to make Fast X or Indy 5 or Transformers 8.
Mhm.
Those were uh, uh, moves that shouldn't have been made, but you had to at least make a sequel to that first Meg movie. And then after this, then the decision is based on what it does this get another theatrical sequel? Does it start to become a straight to quote unquote DVD type franchise? Because
I
there
mean,
will be
I
more Megs. There definitely
I
will be more Megs.
I I mean, I think it might be a Jarhead situation where you have Meg 3 that
Right.
drops on a streamer and Statham is nowhere near it.
Right. 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 No,
I mean,
that's
this is
that's
this
very possible.
this feels Pacific Rim-ish to me, where first movie opens up, does like 37, and then legs out to 100 or something, and then Uprising opens to what did it open to?
Oh, that's a good
28,
call. Yeah.
28. So that's sort of not that much lower, but it legs out to 59.
Right. Right. Well, I think with the Pacific Rim movies, the thought was the sequel will do much better than the first one because they thought that the first one had sort of Austin powered itself and gained fans post theatrical, and that didn't really happen with Pacific Rim. I mean, I think with Meg 2, it's a total
But
cash grab, and that again, they had to make a sequel to that first one. That first one made so much money with it's a big budget movie, but you're not, and Statham's a movie star for sure, and he's getting paid well. But it's not a movie where it's like a fast movie where there's 10 different people who are all getting paid, 10 to $20 million a piece, and the budget is out of control. You can make your Meg movies for relatively a good budget.
well, when you look at this Pacific Rim Uprising 2018, 59.8 domestic haul, and then international 231 million. So you're going to see, I don't think the Meg is going to be as low as this. I think it will get over 60 all in, but the lopsidedness is what you're going to see. You're going to see a hugely lopsided international box office for this
Yes.
movie.
Yeah. And listen, it's not guaranteed that the Meg 2 internationally does even as well as it did last time because again,
It's going up
especially with
against Barbie.
China, it's going up against Barbie, and especially when it comes to China, it's a different world than it was in 2018. The Hollywood movies are not raking in those big China bucks the way that they did pre-pandemic. It's just China has its own movies now, and the Hollywood movies don't play. The Meg is obviously a movie that is very geared towards international because language doesn't seem to matter when you're talking a Meg movie, it's just watching giant shark eat people. But it probably won't do as well as it did the first time. And I know Scott Mendelson was on a few months ago, and he was very high on Meg 2 internationally, but it may underperform there too.
No, I mean, it may, but they cast one of
Right.
the highest grossing actor of all time in China.
Right, right,
Wu
right.
Jing is in this movie. So that was done
Yeah,
intentionally.
true.
And I mean, it may not do that well, but if you've got the highest grossing actor of all time, it's like having Tom Cruise in
Well,
your movie.
well,
I'm uh, I guess I guess you're right. You're right. It's true. I guess it doesn't matter, but over
there
there it may matter.
yeah, yeah, Wu Jing may be in a better spot today than Tom Cruise is in the United States.
Yeah.
Um, and it's still Tom Cruise. Tom Cruise is not finished by any chance.